Aye, kuwe kuwa madue.
Aye, kuwe kuwa madue.
Aye, kuwe kuwa madue.
Aye, kuwe kuwa madue.
Could you state your name, please?
Kelvin Percy Potts, Sr.
Excellent. And Mr. Potts, I'm just going to start with the first question. Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up mostly in East Oakland, California. I was born in Pasadena, California, and we left there when I was like in the 4th grade. So most of my childhood memories are from East Oakland until high school. And then I went back to Pasadena to stay with my father.
Okay.
For
After
high school. At high school, yeah, okay. For high school.
What was it like growing up in East Oakland? Did you feel like the difference between Pasadena and East Oakland and when you moved?
Major difference. Mm-hmm. So my experience in East Oakland, first of all, when I came to East Oakland, I was enrolled into an all-black school, which I hadn't never seen before in Pasadena. And it was challenging because the young men at that school, they like to fight, right? It was like a really like almost a gladiator thing to get involved in. You had to learn how to throw your hands or you're going to end up running or just getting your ass whooped straight up. You know, so that's how it was. You know, so it was really interesting going to that school. And the other interesting piece was, you know, my mom was a single mom because my dad had left. I didn't really meet my dad till I was 15. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but my mom was a single mom, and when we came to Oakland, we stayed with one of her sisters. Okay. And her sisters had like 6 kids, and my mom had 3 of us. And so all of us stayed in this 3-bedroom house, so we kind of like all on top of each other. And it was really interesting, but you know, it was some fights and some bloodshed, and it's just really kind of interesting to have that whole situation to be about, you know.
Yeah. So 9 kids plus your mom and plus your aunt as well. So that's
and my uncle
and your uncle. Yeah, yeah.
It was crowded.
That's a full house.
It was crowded.
That's a full house. So yeah. And just from your you bringing that up, it just seems like there would kind of be a lot more, you know, bumping shoulders, just based off of just proximity. Everyone, like you said, is living on top of each other, and you know, how's that? So, but kind of never had that lonely feeling then, I guess.
Well, yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah. You could say that, yeah.
So, was that something, I guess, when you're growing up that you and your siblings, I guess, kind of relied on each other, your cousins as well, just very tight-knit, would you say that?
Nope, we weren't.
Oh, okay, interesting.
The family was divided. The cousins had their thing, we had our thing.
Okay.
And we did not get along that well.
Oh, wow.
You know, I was really glad we left that house. Really glad. It wasn't a really nice situation for the most part. You know, I remember my mom getting into it with one of my older cousins, you know, straight up. Like, you know, like physical, getting at each other physically. You know, and me and my cousin Richard, we had a lot of like throwdowns, a lot of physical fights where blood was drawn and teeth was knocked out. So it wasn't the most pleasant thing, you know what I mean? So I think they were glad for us to go, and we were glad to get up out of there.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense. It sounds like there was almost kind of some similarities when the situation at home and what was happening when you went to school.
Yeah. Well, you know, East Oakland was kind of like the introduction of violence and anger, and people just wanting to fight, man, and wanting to have their way, you know, and stand their ground. So it was a really interesting time for me. And I had to step up and get ready and do what I had to do. You know, because I wasn't trying to get no ass whooping, and I wasn't trying to run. So, you know, I learned how to fight, man, right there at Brookfield Elementary, you know. Yeah, I remember it because like it was yesterday, you know, a lot of fighting. I don't remember a lot of like friendly conversation. I just don't remember that, you know. So I really remember the toxic, you know, toxic stuff that was happening with the family and also in the community, the school place. So, you know, we moved out, me and my mom, brother, and sister. And my mom had married this guy, and he ended up being very abusive. So I was witnessing a lot of domestic violence in my house with my stepfather. You know, I used to go at my mom. You know, it wasn't like she was trying to fight him. He just was a violent dude, you know. And I found out later on that he had a drinking problem. You know, so that was something that we saw as well. You know, so I don't want to paint a picture of just total destruction. You know, there were some moments of where we had fun and enjoyed the family, and my mom would take us places and do things, and you know, we had that element as well. But it was a lot of the other stuff that is kind of, you know, it's kind of glaring stuff, so it's hard to just kind of dismiss it out of a conversation about how I grew up.
Yeah.
You know, so we ended up moving to out of Brookfield into East Oakland, and I never forget this. You know, we moved. It's called 78th and Holly, and at the time, you know, there's the block. There's a street we lived on, and it was across the street. So houses on this side, houses on that side. There was one other black family in that surrounding, right? And as soon as we moved in, for sale signs started going up.
Wow.
All the white people exited, except one white lady. They moved up to the hills. So that was my first experience with racism, understanding that white folks didn't really want to be around us. Mm-hmm. You know, so they packed up and left, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said when you moved to East Oakland, that was the first time that you had been in an all kind of, or majority, at least majority black school.
Absolutely.
And did that change once you went, you know, as you went to higher grades, high school and stuff, or?
Well, when I got to junior high school, the school was predominantly black. It wasn't a whole lot of white folks there. And, you know, the race thing was big back then. You know, we were in the midst of, you know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and all this kind of stuff, right? And some of us really took sides. We took sides in a strong way. Like, you know, we black and we proud. You know, I don't want to use the language we use sometimes, you know, but we definitely had a thing about letting white folks know that we wasn't too fond of them, you know, and verbally and physically. So we would have, you know, a situation where we would have what we call riots, and the white people at the school, we would just start, you know, getting at them and physically, you know. I ended up going to juvenile hall behind, you know, that whole situation. My first time in being incarcerated was because we had started a riot with these white guys, and some random white guys, we just decided we were going to put them, you know, we were going to handle them, and the police took us in. So, you know, there was a lot of that going on back then. You know, there were certain areas in the city that you just couldn't go to. You couldn't be there because at a certain time, even in the broad daylight, you know, they would sick their dogs on us. You know, yeah, up in the hills, Oakland Hills. So that was part of the growing up as well. You know, as you know, on the positive side, you know, when we moved to East Oakland out of Brookfield, you know, I established some really close friendships. Had my first girlfriend, official girlfriend, you know, stuff like that. So there were some memories that were really nice, but some of it wasn't as nice. Because also there was still that thing about, you know, people kind of clicked up. You know, they had their own little cliques, right? So if you go to a certain area, black folks, you're gonna have to take your buddies with you because it may go down. Right, you know, if you go to a certain party in a certain area, you gotta have your folks with you because it's gonna go down. So the violence kept happening, man. I mean, I've seen a lot of violence coming up, man. You know, it's just the way it was. Just normal kind of lifestyle stuff, right? Yeah. So, but you know, I have made some really close friendships as well. You know, we had a lot of fun, partying, dancing. We used to like to. The thing that in Oakland, East Oakland, coming up in East Oakland, I don't know how important this is, but I'm gonna say it. The important thing for the crowd I ran with, and a lot of the men, young men that I associated with, and the other guys that I didn't really know that well, was we would dress to the T. You know, you had to have girls, you know, you had to know how to fight. Those are the three most important mechanisms or defining moments, qualifications for manhood at that time. Know how to dress, you got a girl, and you can throw them things. You ain't like that, you need to get to step in and be able to run because it's gonna go down. You know, we really prided ourselves in dressing and having the right colors coordinated, and the jeans starched to the bone, and the shoes shine at the toe. We used to wear Stacey Adams, and the toe would be shinier than any other part of the shoe. You know, so that was our claim. That's what we did, man.
I heard that. Did you have any, I guess, favorite spots that you used to go to?
Royal Park.
Royal Park. Okay.
We used to go up there. And they had a little rec center where we would have parties and dances. I mean, you bring memories back now, bro. Because back in the day, it was James Brown was the hot item, right? Yeah. And maybe put on the James Brown song, and man, cats would be like skating. You know, James Brown did this dance called a skate. Yeah. You know, some of the guys who really knew how to skate, and they would like form a circle. They would be skating and stuff. But then the other piece that was real predominant in that time, as far as the entertainment and dancing and all that stuff, was like slow dancing. I'm talking about grinding, right? So we'd have what we call like red light parties. Sometimes we'd be in the garage and we'd have the lights down real low. And you put on a certain song, turn the lights completely out, and you make sure you get a girl that knew how to grind real good. Oh man, them was the days, boy. Man, they had y'all young though. See, there was one favorite song we had, man. It's called "Stay in My Corner" by the Dells.
I hear that.
Stay in the corner. There was a part of that song he held a note for a long time. Stay, and that's when the get down was really, you was really getting in it then. I mean, getting in it, man. You with your girl, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I didn't know I was gonna say all this.
No, now you're remembering the good times. Now you think about it. That's what it is. Really.
Well, you know, there also was this. I was really athletic and real good at it. And I remember me and a couple of my buddies, we used to always go to these schools or go to these parks that had a fence, and we'd have a tennis ball and a bat, and we'd always be going for the fence and throwing, trying to strike each other out. And I was real good at playing baseball. And sometimes we'd go to Royal, we'd play football, and we'd be tackling, man. We wasn't doing no touch.
Full contact.
Full contact, man. Coming home dirty, all bruised up, and the whole nine, man. Yeah. It was really interesting in those times, man.
Okay. Did you play in school too?
Well, I ended up playing. We called it Pony League. Yeah, I started playing like organized baseball over at Greenman Field. Okay. And then it went on to Babe Ruth, and so I got really good at baseball. You know, really good. I mean, to the point where I was like one of the star players, second base, shortstop. Okay. Yeah, I was really good at baseball.
I hear that.
Yeah.
What? Oh, go ahead.
So, fast forward. Mm-hmm. So I told you I went to juvenile hall because we got into an altercation with some white guys, and they locked us up for a while. And then I got out of junior high school, went to high school. Now, the high school was all black, Castlemont. And when I first got there was like 3 or 4 fights every day. Wow. And so about the second week, my mom pulled me to the side and said, son, you need to go stay with your father. Because she seen the trouble coming. I guess she saw it in my face. She could see my temperament when I came home or whatever, I don't know. Because there was a lot of guys up there from different neighborhoods. And you could see, you get these looks like, hey man, you know, what's up, bro? You know, it's like, it's kind of like the funk is about to get down. I'm about to be in it in a minute. You know, where my boy's at. So mom sent me to stay with my father, who I'd never really met him before. It's my biological father. She had divorced my stepfather, but long story short, my biological father wasn't around, and I hadn't seen him, heard from him. I really didn't know who the guy was. I heard things about him. I heard I looked like him and all these things. So when we got to the airport, my mom said, you're gonna recognize him when he walks up. He's gonna be wearing a hat. You know, and I see my dad coming, I was like, that's him. So anyway, so my mom sends me to stay with my dad. You know, you guys are interviewing and asking questions and want me to describe my life. I didn't anticipate, you know, an emotional situation, but it often comes when I get into those conversations, you know.
No problem.
Sorry? What did you say?
I said, it comes, sometimes the emotion erupts, and I start talking about my dad. So anyway, I was going to stay with my father, right? He came to the airport, and I seen him, and he did look like me. We looked alike. And I heard things about him. You know, I heard he had, you know, been around a bit, as far as the ladies was concerned. But he had a family. So he took me to his house. He's got a wife and he's got like 4 kids. You know, and not, you know, it's not everybody had their own room. You know, I slept with 3 of the boys in the bunk beds upstairs. So that was really interesting because, you know, just being with my father, and I had some expectations that he didn't live up to. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure he was doing the best he could at the time, considering, you know, what was going on in his life. That now that I've gotten older, I understand some of the things that were troubling him and some of the ways that he was doing his life that interrupted the family process or the ability to, you know, raise children in a way that would be productive or, you know, whatever. So he was just caught up in some other things, right? He was busy, man, doing his thing, right? So I ended up going to, here's a really interesting piece. I told you the junior high school was mostly black and we had the racial stuff going on. I ended up going to a mostly white school. I think it was 15% black.
Wow, it's a complete switch.
Yeah, and when I got to the campus, I had my East Oakland gear on, right? I told you guys we like to dress real kind of provocatively. And they laughed at me at the school. They were laughing at me, right? Like, who is this cat, man? Mm-hmm. I had the whole deal though. I had the secretary with like a long wallet with a chain. I had my jeans starched and cut, you know, up here with rolls at the bottom. I had my alpaca sweater and my starched shirt. I was clean as all get out, right? According to the code of East Oakland, right? Yeah. Them cats laughed at me, man. And I was like, oh, I had to change up. I had to just get a little more conservative out here because this ain't how this is. But the thing that really changed a lot for me is I got deep into athletics. I started playing baseball and football, you know. So I went out for the football team, you know, and everybody was really excited about my abilities because I was tough, man, and I could handle it, you know. So, you know, we was banging them cats, tough, you know, we was doing our thing. And in baseball, they had about 4 or 5 cats trying to compete for my position. All them cats had to sit down. So I got really good. I mean, it started getting articles in the newspaper and accolades, and my dad would come home, yeah, I've been hearing about you, kid, son, and blah, 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 blah. Wow. You know, but he still was detached to a degree. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's like, my dad he'd get his Sunday go to meeting clothes on, whatever you want to call it. He gone for 2 or 3 days. Don't nobody know where Pops is at. Yeah, he gone. You know, so, and he never talked about it. You know, so he was really kind of a distant father. You know, and he was not approachable at most times, you know. So, you know, and then, you know, I had brothers and, I had 2 brothers in there and 1 sister, yeah, and his stepmother. So I remember those times as being really kind of different, you know, made some really good friends, hella good friends, had my first encounter with sex, you know, in Pasadena, and ended up having a daughter, you know, I'm still really close to today. She'll be 51 years old on Monday, Elena. Awesome. So, you know, we had a lot of fun in Pasadena, man. We played sports, we got to go to different areas, and we actually, in my senior year, we were the #1 team in the state of California, in the 4A division. See, there was 1A, 2A, 3A. 4A was the top division of California. We ended up playing in the championship game. I was like a free safety, rolling back. And we had to play a game in the Coliseum, LA Coliseum, for the championship of the state against some school called Bishop Lamont, private white boy school. Yeah. White boy school. For a school that's predominantly white, right? Oh, man, because I remember they had this cat named Pat Hayden and John McKay. That was John McKay's son. The John McKay that was, you know, the bad boy in USC and all that stuff. And Pat Hayden was another cat that rose in the ranks and did all this stuff. And I never forget it, man, because Pat Hayden was a quarterback and McKay was a wide receiver. And they called our defense green. And that's why I just followed John McKay wherever he went. And he did not catch one ball when I was on him. In fact, I put him out the game. I mean, I cut him. I went up under him. Boom! And he hit the ground, and he had to get out for a few days, for a little while. So we won that championship game. So we were really well known. We wear our little jackets around Pasadena, and people be blowing their horns. Hey, they go to team, they go to team. So
That's cool.
yeah, and I still have one of my best friends in life was a quarterback. He was a shortstop. I was second base, Jimmy Andrews. We still talk all the time. We're still real close.
Good.
He was a cornerback. I was the free safety. So it was a really good, interesting time in Pasadena. Like I said, my girlfriend did give birth to my daughter. Me and her were at odds when she got pregnant because she was accusing me of all kind of crazy stuff that I really wasn't doing, so we kind of split up, So anyway, fast forward, 12th grade. I guess, appearances sometimes are deceptive. And I think my dad's wife thought I was more wilder than I really was. Some things happened, not big, no big stuff happened, but nothing glaring. But one day my dad, oh man. One day it was like, I think I was real close to graduating from high school. Maybe I just got out of high school. And we're in the living room talking. And he was kind of like criticizing me about how I show up in the world and how I could be selfish and this, that, and the other. He was like, and I had an older brother who would come around every now and then, I grew up with. And he would come around every now and then. He was like real family orientated. I'll say that to my brother. He would pile all the kids in the station wagon and take them to the park. I wasn't into that. I was in there running the street, kicking with my partners, doing what most of the guys out kicking would do, right? And I could tell that my dad really liked my brother Jeffrey. He was older than me. He had that thing about the family and the station wagon and the kids and all that stuff, right? And one day my dad started kind of criticizing me, said, "Why can't you be like Jeffrey?" And I kind of had been waiting for that because I could tell that he really liked Jeffrey, the way Jeffrey showed up, right? And I was like, "Dad, you know what, man? I'm Kelvin Potts. I ain't trying to be Jeffrey, and I ain't gonna never be Jeffrey. This is who I am." He said, "Well, you need to be who you is and get the fuck up out of here." I was like, "All right." So I packed my shit, man, and and got to the door. Well, he had helped me buy this little car, a little Volkswagen. Got to the door. He said, "You need to leave the keys." So I cussed him out, man, and I bounced. So I didn't just bounce like that, but I got up out of there. And my brother, the older brother, the one that's station wagon the kids, that's how I describe him. He was at San Jose State, and he said, "You want to go to school?" I said, "School?" I said, I had messed up my grades in 12th grade, man. I think I had a 1.8 or something like that. I said, I had a 1.8. Ain't nobody let me in no school. He said, "Well, there's a guy up here, S.T. Stafford. He's part of the EOP program. I know him. Come talk to him. He'll probably give you some slack." Go talk to the guy, wrote a letter. They let me in school. So I ended up going to San Jose State University, or San Jose State at the time.
That's great.
Yeah. So I think that's enough about my childhood. I mean, I can talk about San Jose State. Whoa. Oh my goodness. Wow, San Jose State was, man.
How was it back
Yeah,
then?
and
How was it then?
Yeah.
leading up to it like that. Now I have to know now.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's good. Storytelling is good because it kind of brings up stuff. So I got to San Jose State, and I was in the dormitories, and some of the things I'm gonna say are something that the way I'm stating them is because I've learned from those experiences, what those were about at that time. You know what I mean? At that time, I didn't realize what was going on, but now in retrospective and in the things that I've learned about behavior and young men and young black men and all these different things, it's way clearer now, right?
Yeah.
So me being a guy with somewhat of a violent kind of past and some of the trauma that I was faced, sometimes you're attracted to those same type of people. The energy draws them.
Yeah,
So
familiar.
Familiar. So I ended up, hanging out with the cats on campus that was the wildest and the, most trouble, so to speak. We just out there raising havoc on the schoolyard, man. I don't want to get into details because it don't really make sense, but we did a lot of wild stuff, man, and a lot of, fighting, a lot of started using drugs, mess with the girls, So I mean, in a way, it wasn't always as respectful as you would want somebody to mess with your sister or your daughter. So it's kind of got like that, right? And it got pretty wild down there. I ended up getting to the fraternity and going to jail while I was pledging, because we got into some illegal activities as pledges, and so got through all of that, man. And ended up doing a lot, man. Doing a lot, just a lot of drinking and a lot of drugging. Got the drugs and stuff got to be something that we did on a regular basis, to the point of being hooked, dependent on having to get your head bad. Love getting my head bad, man. And me and my boy, one of my closest partners, I'll never forget, man. We'd be 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, man. We on the street, man. Where you at, man? Man, you got some more? Yeah, we was rolling, man. Sometimes we'd be out there looking for somebody to start some shit so we could throw them hands. It's just how it was, man. It's like I had this thing about manhood at the time, that this depicted your manhood. How high can you get? Can you handle it? If you can't handle it, you ain't no man. How good can you throw them hands? Can you protect me? Can you get down if we're on the street? I don't need no cat with me if you can't throw them hands, bro. You know what I'm saying? That's just the way it was. It's really a distorted reality of manhood. Yeah. Like, very distorted. And then the fraternity, man, they didn't promote, they promote toxic masculinity, to be honest with you. To be straight up with you, now that I know it, it's very toxic. Beating on you and slapping you and just got you doing crazy stuff. And
hazing.
See it through. Yeah, hazing. See it through, and you're going to be a man. You're going to handle it, right? I'm going to be all mentioned. You ain't going to break me. I'm going to make this. You ain't going to put me down. I'm the dude. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of the cats in the frat was like that, man. It's just how we grew up, man. And eventually, I didn't graduate, but I ended up moving in with this young lady who was very, she was very conservative, well-mannered. I don't know why she wanted to mess with me. She must have saw the potential. So that kind of changed things a bit. That's growing up. I think that's enough about growing up, because there's some more things you guys want to know, right? Woo-wee.
No, I mean, definitely cover a lot there. And just based off of a lot of these kind of experiences, I was going to ask, what are some lessons you've learned about Black society, just as you were coming up, and the experiences that you mentioned when you were in college, and all that. What have you learned?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said before, I've learned that, as I've gotten older, that manhood is not defined by how the street defines it, or how strong you are, your inability to be like a little softer, a little more gentler, have a heart and show that your heart is okay with all that stuff. So I've learned that was not a good way to be. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know, I've just learned a lot from just looking back and learning that, that fatherhood is something that people really need to cherish and do the best they can to, provide a form or a healthy relationship with the people they bring into the world. That's why I learned that was one of the biggest lessons I learned. That this thing the way my dad was, this can't continue.
So I have to break that cycle.
Yeah, I have a son now. He is 31, but when he came into the world, I told myself he would never be without me. And I kept that promise.
That's good.
In fact, when he was born, I was in the room. Married to his mom, and I remember holding him up in the room I didn't know, back in the day, see, we didn't do that stuff people do nowadays. They be wanting to know what kind of kid it is. Is it a boy, is it a girl? No, I didn't want to know. So when they said, you got a boy, I was like, wow, And I still got my, my man stuff with me, so I got my cigars, and I'm talking to my partners, talking shit, smoking cigars. Yeah, I made a boy, man. So, I made sure that, every morning before I went out and did whatever I did, I'd go to his room. Because once he, got to the place where he was going to be in his crib, instead of sleeping with us or sleeping in the crib in the room, I always go in his room and pick him up and hold him and hug him. Tell him, I love you, son. So I was able to do that with him and continue to do that. And even when me and his mom split up, he was about 5. And I was still maintain that relationship with my kids. You know what I'm saying? I became a basketball coach, a track coach, and all that. So he was really right there by my side his entire life. I've just been real close to him. Go to college. He ended up going to college on a basketball scholarship, and I was out there, following the bus around. I remember he went to Clark, Atlanta. Well, he wanted to go to. Let me back up a little bit. He played ball in high school. He got pretty good at it. And he wanted to go to, I told him, son, maybe I want to go to a black school. You've never seen that. So we went down to Clark and visited. He liked it. Yeah, Dad, I want to go here. So I called the coach and said, I got a young man that wants to play out for the team. So we went down and tried out. He gave him a scholarship.
That's excellent.
Yeah, he didn't stay for the whole time because that coach left and another coach came in and was an asshole. So he ended up coming back to the Bay Area. Ended up going to Chapeau. Got really good at Chapeau, and the coach came and sat down in my living room and said, hey, I want to get your son a scholarship. So I get him a scholarship to go to Idaho. Wow. So now my son is, went to Idaho, he got out. Now he's got a family. He's got 3 boys, and he has his own organization. He has a AAU organization where he has like 12 or 13 teams. They go all over the country playing. And he's training and coaching kids, so he's doing good. And my 8-year-old grandson is a monster on that basketball court. Seriously, I'm not just saying because he's my grandson. He's something to see. If I show y'all a video, you see what I'm talking about. Okay. That boy ain't no joke. So, the cycle has been broken. And my son is real close to his boys, so. Let me say this a little bit before I move on out of this. You see me get emotional about my father. But as my life took a lot of turns and went different places, up and down and up. But at some point, that relationship became really important to me and my father. Mm-hmm. And I went on this path to heal it, especially for me, because I'd gotten information, I'd gotten different settings and different places and things that I was doing once I began to change my life and stop messing with the drugs and stop being self-destructive type of stuff and all the crazy shit I was doing and violence, and got in touch with some of my feelings. It's like, I want my dad, right? So I went on this journey to create a relationship with him that would be better. And it happened, It got better and better and better. And so when he actually moved to Mississippi to retire and had this young girl he was married to. So when he started getting sick, I'd go down there and be with him. Mm-hmm. And before he transitioned, we were in love with each other. And we were able to express love to each other. That's what I always wanted. That's good. So it's kind of like, it's like the absent father, but having a story of healing and reparation, or whatever you want to call it, and love. So at the end of the story, we were in love with each other, and we were able to even verbalize our love for each other. It took a lot. It took a lot. It took a lot, because my dad was from old school, way old school. It's like, no, you don't tell nobody you love them. They didn't know you love them because I did this and I did that. You got a roof over your head and, all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But, he started having some different experiences with his brothers, about certain things and understanding the depth of substance abuse and alcoholism. And he was like, wow, stuff is serious. And yeah, Dad. So, once I was able to come out. Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of sometimes now that I'm older, I kind of look at it like this. I look at it like, well, I've always had this thing about wanting to kick it with the fellas. And I always wanted to be part of the crowd, you know. And when I was younger, it was like a self-destructive, violent crowd. And now that I've gotten older and I've gotten in touch with some of my innermost feelings and how I feel about life and how I want to show up, it's like I seek and I pursue healthy relationships with men, you know, in circles of men who are on the same path, so to speak. You know, so that part of my life is kind of put to the side. I'm not saying I can't go there, and I don't still have sometimes some of those ill thoughts, because I do, but I just don't respond to them anymore. I just kind of, I process things a lot. I process a lot of things now, you know, to get to the truth of what is really going on instead of reacting to things. So, you know, that's that's kind of where I'm at, man.
No, that's excellent, and that what you're describing, that's a journey. That's an entire process. It's not just a clear path.
Yeah.
I think for anyone, even doesn't necessarily even have to be what you know your background was growing up. It could, you know, you can get trauma from all different types of places. So.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting. I'm gonna speak on that for a minute because, I mean, I was, wow, I must have been, like, I'm 69 years old, right? So I must have been in my early 50s or middle 50s when I was really had to admit or feel that I was traumatized. Because in my neighborhood and where I grew up, that was just normal living. That's just how things went down. You know what I'm saying? But I was in this trauma-informed care training with Alameda County Probation Department because I was working at the facility and they required that you do this training, right? And they had us in this table and they had us talking about, they had some script they gave us. They gave us a little, you know, it's like you know, these table talks. And there was like several tables in the room and they had people broken up into little groups. And our group had a family. And they chose me as the guy that was troublesome. I don't know how it happened, but it just happened to happen. And so we did our little dialogue and we talked about it. And then at some point, they asked us to share out, you know, what was the experience like talking about that family? And the group chose me to speak. And when I got up to talk, I got emotional because I felt the trauma. I felt it. And I was like, man, I was traumatized. And I didn't realize it because around me, that was normal living. That's just normal how people just how the world is, you know?
Yeah.
Dudes be beating their moms. They folks and folks supposed to be fighting and people using drugs. I mean, everyday life. So now I, you know, kind of realize that there's some trauma involved.
Yeah, no, it's good that you're at least at a place where you can recognize that and be able to unpack that, so it's not a cloud that's over you that you're not sure why.
Exactly.
You know, because that carries into all the different other parts of your life, and you don't necessarily realize what's this coming from. Why do I, you know, why I'm already in defense mode if someone looks at me too long, like that type of that thing. And that's it's a lot of that's just from, like you say, just growing up and just having responding differently than just reacting. So, which I think is, you know, that's excellent. I'm glad you were able to, you know, make that transition. That's really important. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, but it's still on a similar topic. What do you say are like maybe the top 3 things that are most harmful to the Black community, in your opinion?
Wow. Drugs. I'm gonna say destructive substances. Put all that in one category: drugs, alcohol, whatever. Mm-hmm. Violence. And kind of like lack of resources and information. You know, lack of resources and information.
In your opinion, what do you think we can do to fix some of these issues?
Wow, that's a really good question, bro. Whew. Well, I don't have an answer for that question. I just think that it's something that it's got to start real early, and it's got to be something that can influence a family dynamic. And if it's not something that can't infuse the family dynamic, then they need, I don't know, man. That's a tough question right there, man. It's a tough question. But that would be my first response, is have something that impacts the family dynamics.
Yeah, that's an answer. Yeah, affecting family dynamics and nipping things in the bud, if you will, so that it doesn't become a problem later. That sounds like kind of what you're getting at with family, and making sure that dynamic is working, or at least is in a healthier position.
Well, I mean, from my own personal experience with transformational practices and the ways and means of young men being in trouble, for me, it would take like relationship building and really heartfelt companionship. Because what I've seen, and even for myself, change is something that usually comes through the heart, or through the soul, or through the spirit. It doesn't necessarily come through the intellect. Because the intellect can just absorb and think and talk and receive, but change, a lot of times people need to feel that change, or they need to embody it and really have a different experience in their own spirit and their own soul. And the reason I'm speaking like that, because I've had my own personal experiences with change coming through that medium, in a really profound way. I'm not going to get all into the details, but a major way. It's like, sometimes, people that are extremely like hard-headed and stubborn and have a certain way of being, the impactfulness of something change has to become like that as well. It's like, you got to fight fire with fire, so to speak. You got to, somebody's kind of hard-headed, you might have to slap them upside the head, or give them something where they could see and feel that this is where I need to be. This is the experience I need to continue to have.
Yeah, it's a good point. And a lot of that is, trying to meet people. Sometimes meet people where they're at to understand them better. Because like you said, some people are hard-headed. They're not necessarily going to immediately pick up on the way you received something, or the aha moment for you is not going to necessarily be that for them. So this understanding that different dynamic, I think, is really important. What does being black in America mean to you?
What being black in America means to me? What kind of question is that? What does being black in America mean to me? It kind of means that we still have a ways to go. And there's some people that still want to hold us down. And being black in America, to me, nowadays means that you have to be very resilient, and you have to be very resourceful, and you have to be willing to take some chances and do something differently, to strive and do something different with your life. Because if you want something different, some of the things that are in place in society right now, they're not going to change. It's a matter of us being able to invoke the change within ourselves about how we experience these things. That's my best answer I can give you right there.
I hear that. No, definitely respect that. A lot of we're talking about a lot of change has to happen. Not just externally but internally. So around that. We're just moving on. How has the Brotherhood of Elders Network impacted your life?
That's a good one, bro. Guess I missed that in the email. Okay, so Brotherhood of Elders Network. Okay, I think for me, I have to kind of go back a little ways.
Sure.
And kind of let you know how I got introduced to the Brotherhood.
Let's go.
So there's this guy, Arnold Perkins. I call him Baba P. Baba Arnold Perkins. Very astute man, very community orientated, solid guy. So in the community, some of the work that I do is with incarcerated and previously incarcerated youth. That's what we do. We call Right to Passage programs. And there was a conflict going on, and I met Arnold. I see Arnold around these meetings, but he seemed like and he is a very distinctive kind of gentleman, kind of like, he was like almost like a politician kind of guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so me still having some of my issues about who I belong to and where I can go.
Yeah.
I just felt like he wasn't the kind of cat that I could approach. But something came up, and we got into the same room about some situations. And he was like, he could read my energy and my body language and my eye contact, and he called me on it. I was like, wow, this dude is pretty cool. He's pretty amazing. So after that meeting, I went to him. I said, bro, I want to talk to you a little bit more. So we started to, this is how I came to the Brotherhood. Mm-hmm. Him and I started to have coffee and lunch and building a relationship. And then one day, he let me know or let me see his past, you know, and we have similar pasts. I was like, wow, dude, you mean to tell me you been down that road too? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, he called me KP. Oh yeah, KP, and this, that, and the other, that, this, and so we connected in a very strong way. Mm. And he was like, KP, I want you to come to these meetings. Back up a little bit. So I have the Rites of Passage program in the maximum security units at Juvenile Hall. Mm-hmm. And we're doing a graduation ceremony. And so I invite Bobby Perkins to the ceremony. And this is another thing that really impressed me about it. It impressed me about the way he shows up. So he comes into the gathering, and we're inside Juvenile Hall and into a system. We got about 20 guys up in there in our program, about 8 of them about to graduate. The first thing Arnold Perkins does is he puts on an apron and starts getting the food ready. I was like, look at this dude, man, he's cool. I was like, he's humble too. So he invited me to come into the Brotherhood. And let me just be honest with you. You guys ask me questions, I'm gonna answer them, man. I'm gonna answer them. When I first came into that room with the brothers, I didn't feel like I belonged there. I didn't, because to me, it seemed like a group of guys that were highly educated, very articulate, you know, and had all these wonderful things going on in their life, and I felt out of place.
Yeah, I get it.
But then this is brother in there. His name is Baba Joe, older guy, one of Arnold Perkins' best friends. Baba Joe started talking and cussing and getting loud, and I was like, oh, okay. I was like,
now you feel home.
I was like, okay, well maybe I hang around now. You know what I'm saying? Because he was spitting like, he was howling like, getting down like the cats I'm used to being around. Getting down. And Baba Perkins started doing it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna hang out. So, you know, then we, you know, then they started coming, supporting the Rites of Passage program and really getting involved in that. That was a wonderful thing. We started doing these retreats and like, you know, digging deep into some areas and some relationship building stuff. And I was really, really loving the Brotherhood, man. And what the Brotherhood kind of did for me, or what it extended for me, is like brought me like an extended family. You know, I have like brothers in there now. I got guys that are father figures. Like Baba P is like a daddy figure to me, man. He calls me all the time. He be talking a lot of shit too. But he's a good guy, you know, so I'm just saying, you know, Baba Cole, some of these guys have become like my brothers, you know, and it's like, it's good to have them around, because sometimes I need to hear a different perspective. Yeah. I need to hear what they have to say, and I pay close attention. And, you know, they're very articulate, but sometimes they're just like me. They just bring it bare bones, straight from the cuff. You know what I'm saying? So it's a good situation, man. I think it's a powerful group to be with. I think there's a lot of good things that are happening in there, and a lot of support network as well. So,
That's
yeah, I think
excellent. I'm glad the situation, I guess, changed from your initial reaction of, I don't know if this is for me, to no, this is my group now.
Yeah.
So I guess,
they know they received me, man. I've noticed I've done a couple of presentations in there about my work, and I could just be myself, and they welcome it, and it's cool. It's great, man. You know, so they got to know me, I got to know them, and they know how I do it, and you know, I'm welcome there. You know, I feel like I'm a real avid supporter and person of that group. You know, I even learned how to like pour libations, which is something that I wasn't doing until I got there. They honor the ancestors. I think that's a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're still growing stronger and doing more and getting closer, you know.
Excellent. Well, that's an excellent thing. And just, you know, we've touched on a lot of topics today, and I'm curious, what would your advice be to your younger self? What would you tell your younger self if you go back? You can, any age, whatever.
What would I tell my younger self? Mm-hmm. Oh, man. I'd probably tell my younger self, to hold on. Change is coming. Just breathe, man. Stand strong. Do what you can, because this is life, young man. You know what I'm saying? life is life, and you're getting it. You're getting a full dose of it, So stand strong and find something to believe in, that'll help you through this whole thing. Yeah.
Wow. Definitely makes sense. And what would be some wisdom you think you should share, or that you'd like to share with the younger generations? And it sounds like you already do that in your line of work. You meeting people and letting them, getting through that conflict resolution and to all that.
Well, wisdom. Well, the thing that I think that I want to instill in young men, especially the population we work with, is that we've all been given some major gifts, and quite often we aren't aware of them, and we need to dig in and figure out what that is and bring that to the forefront and let that guide your life. Because a lot of times, people get sidetracked with, just like I did, sidetracked with this quest for manhood in a destructive way. So let's do a quest for the self-discovery of knowledge of who you are and what your gifts are, because everybody has given a certain amount of gifts. Let's find them. Let's bring them out. Let's put that toxic masculinity stuff to the side for a minute. I'm not saying be no sucker or be no punk. I'm just saying be true to who you are. Be true who the ancestors invoked you with, who the Creator brought you here to be. Find that and let that guide you, And if, that's what I would say. That's what I would give.
And just even thinking about just the kids you've worked with, the young men that you've worked with, do you see maybe a lot, any similarities of just from your upbringing and just some of the things they're going through now? Or you see a lot of maybe parallel stories that you're like, you almost can kind of know, like, hey, I've been this way already. I know this path. That's not going to get you where you want to go. Does that happen a lot in your line of work?
I'll explain to you like this, my brother. The work that I do is a ministry. I never got into it to be a businessman or to make a bunch of money. I did it because of the spirit of the Creator put it, embedded it into my heart. So when I go into these arenas, and when I'm in that ring, when I'm in the flow of that work, I'm one of them. And it's very easy for them to recognize that I am. So what happens is they tend to open up and show me more than they may show the average cat that comes up in there. And I'm not bragging, I'm just saying that's kind of like my reach. Yeah. Because in fact, that's such a powerful revelation to me that I'm very protective of those young men. Because we are real similar, in spirit and in consciousness, because I'm right there with them, And I realize that sometimes, you have to kind of be the doorkeeper, because they're going to do a lot of different things that may not make sense to the average person. So you got to stand by the door and say, hey, bro, it's still open.
Doorkeeper. Yeah. I hear that. Oh, well, no, I appreciate everything that you've been sharing with us today. It's been really powerful, and I just appreciate the journey that you shared, and there's a lot to be taken from that, a lot of wisdom and advice in that. Even you just recounting your childhood and just some of the struggles, and just talking about trauma, and just how toxic masculinity just impacted how you were growing up, and how you were perceiving the world, and how that's changed, and having that position. Is there anything that you would like to mention that you feel like we haven't gotten a chance to talk about that might be on your mind or in your spirit?
I guess the only thing that's kind of like on me right now is like that, Not really. I was gonna say freedom, man. I mean, you know, just free to be who you are, you know, and just be okay with all of who you are, you know, and whether it's whatever, however it shows up, just let it flow. You know, like I'm a very emotional person, you know, and I haven't always embraced that because it wasn't my upbringing to be. You know, men don't do that. You know, don't get emotional. You know, but I believe I think that's the seat of my passion. That's the seat of my gift because it drives me. You know, and it supports my life force. You know, so when I'm clear and I'm like just really channeling, you know, authenticity. You know, it feeds my life force and it gives me strength and gives me like energy to maintain. So I'm like, because I'm letting it go. I'm not bottled up, you know, so it's absolutely a necessity for me. Absolutely.
I hear that. Well, Baba Kelvin, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for allowing me. Thank you for having me here.